Hey guys, Steve here from Bloom Audio. Since the DX160 was discontinued, we've been waiting for a new, more budget-friendly player from iBasso. And now it's here. So, can the DX170 live up to the DX160's legacy? Let's find out. In this video, we're going to cover the package and included accessories, the build and design, the UI and performance, and we'll talk about the sound, and we'll provide some comparisons on the sound, on the design, and the UI and performance with a couple other players as well, specifically the DX160 and the Astell&Kern SR25 Mark II. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. Usually I start off the unboxing segment with a disclaimer that I actually already opened this and used it today. That's not the case. I've got one in the original retail packaging, 100% new. You'll notice these are not shrink wrapped and they come with a nice, not particularly nice plastic bag. The slip cover with the yellow box inside. I really dig this color scheme. There's something about it. Slide that over, flip this, and you get your DX170 inside. There's a little whole ribbon here to help with the removal. Really like the back of the unit. Can't really fully appreciate it here. It's really nice. So you pop this out and open this up. So in here, you're going to find the case and cable. So slide that out and we have charge cable, a protective case, and screen protectors. So the device itself, very similar to the DX160. We get balanced and unbalanced, and then this also, you get a close look there. This is, phone out, line out, and also SPDIF on there. Charge on the top. Micro SD up to 2 terabytes on this one. And we'll check out the screen and all of that in just a minute. So if you've used an iBasso device in the past or even watched some of our videos, the general operation of the device will be pretty familiar. It's an Android device with some extra stuff. And you can adjust your gain, line out, interface, and all this stuff through the UI. And there are some dedicated settings for things like the audio control buttons and all of that. But rather than go through all of these things again, I wanted to do some performance comparisons with a couple of different devices. So right here, we've got the DX170, and then next to it, we've got the DX160. So we're just kind of go through some basic, swiping back and forth. So you can kind of see the similarities and differences with the performance. We also have the SR25 Mark II and the iBasso DX240 as another example here. Let's go ahead and launch Spotify on both of these. If you'll note, the black levels are definitely a little bit crisper on the DX170. So there's some slight improvements to the screen. These are both at the same brightness level. Neither of these are incredibly smooth. I do find that DX170, loads faster. It's a little bit smoother in general in the operation than DX160. You can see, just in the way of things are popping up. Of course, I should also note 170 adds the Bluetooth DAC feature as well. But in terms of performance, it's better, especially the more you move through the device. You'll notice the load times and touch responsiveness is better on the DX170. It's not worlds apart, but there are some slight improvements there. Let's go ahead and grab the SR25 Mark II and launch Spotify on here. Spotify is just the easy one to fairly graphically intensive, kind of an easy one to compare. Let's pop out of here. Make this fair. Just trying to listen on my DX140. So now you can kind of see some of the difference here in the app loading speed. Scrolling and all of that isn't too different. But you can see some differences, in the load times. If my touches register. Through that. So just as a baseline, I thought I'd also bring out the DX240. So, password on this one. See there here, I'm just going to swipe out of everything again to ensure we've got nothing cached. So you can see that the 240 is definitely a little bit smoother than the 170. But the 170 does generally feel pretty good. Also, I think the brightness on this one's down. So it's going to load app faster. It's a faster overall player. But the difference isn't necessarily night and day, even between the 240, which just feels a little bit tighter and crisper with the touch control and a little bit smoother with things like the scrolling, a little bit faster loading things, but not massively so. So in terms of the performance, I think the 170 stacks up pretty well. There are some noticeable improvements over the 160, and it's definitely smoother and crisper than the SR25 Mark II for app operation. So the build, package, all of that's really solid. The UI, Android 11, that's all great. All that doesn't really matter too much if it doesn't sound good. So how does it sound? So the tuning fits very much with iBasso's house sound. Largely neutral reference tuning. Focus is primarily on accuracy here. So in the bass, you get a very linear bass with really good extension and just a good sense of texture to the bass, good punch as well. I would say compared to the DX160, there's just a little bit more going on in the bass, just a general presence, but definitely not any kind of real emphasis or exaggeration there. Mid-range is very full, rich. It's just a well-crafted mid-range with lots of detail, really strong separation, and natural timbre in the delivery. Treble comes close to having a little bit of edge to it, but it's generally very crisp with strong extension, good air there in the treble without becoming fatiguing or bright. And the soundstage and imaging with the DX170 is really good. The soundstage has a good three-dimensional feel with very immersive feeling imaging to it. So the official power spec is 3.2 volts out of the unbalanced and 6.4 volts out of the balanced. So that would mean, in theory, you're getting, I think, about 1.2, 1.3 watts balanced and about 320 milliwatts unbalanced, which is, about par for the course for this sort of portable device. In my experience in listening, it felt like it hit a little harder than most. I should also note that when they don't provide the specific wattage at the impedance, the calculations aren't always 100% accurate because there can be difference in the amount of current that you're producing at those various impedance levels. So that's those numbers I gave were just basically an estimate based on kind of the math without knowing all the details. But this does seem a bit more powerful than other devices with similar specs. So ranging from LCDX, LCD2, Hi-Fi Man Aria, Edition XS, some of the stuff we talked about in our previous video, have this all plugged into here. And I was just really impressed with the level of power. It didn't sound like a, somewhat moderately powered portable device. It really did feel like it was giving some of those headphones a lot of juice, more than I expected, particularly with the Audeze, where there tends to be some anemic feeling bass a lot of times with a portable device. I didn't feel that way with DX170. I felt like the bass was pretty strong and dynamic there. Now on the flip side, this also did great with IEMs and sensitive IEMs, particularly if you've got a balanced cable. But I had the Andromeda, Campfire Andromeda, which is, among the more sensitive IEMs out there, and it was completely hiss-free. So really, the overall power of the performance here is really fantastic for this kind of device, whether you want to use it with IEMs or if you want to use it with over-ear headphones, within reason. I listened with an HE1000 V2 in balanced, and it really sounded great, but the volume wasn't all the way there, I think, for a lot of listeners. But overall, really solid performance in terms of the power output, whether you need more power or whether you want a more sensitive delivery for IEMs. Well, we've already talked about the UI performance with a couple different DAPs. I also wanted to talk about the sound differences with those. So, the first comparison most people are thinking about is the DX160. And overall, the characteristics between this and the DX160 are really similar. The big differences are really going to be in the bass, I feel, and a little bit in the treble and in the sound stage. DX170 was giving just a little bit more bass in general. Still does, again, the bass doesn't feel like there's a strong emphasis there. Just felt like a little bit more slam in the low end, just a little bit more presence there in the 170 than there was with the 160. The treble also feels like there's a little bit less edge to the treble in the 170. The 160 could get a little bit more grainy feeling up there. 170 seems to have executed that top end a little bit better. And along with that, the sound stage just feels a little bit more pulled out. Especially, I feel like with something that doesn't have a particularly great sound stage, where you might feel in your head a little bit with the DX160, the 170 really did help pull that out of your head more than the 160 did. Now, Astell&Kern's SR25 Mark II is a different story entirely. Really, a lot of this is going to come down to the overall philosophy between the two brands. So where 170 largely gives you a pretty neutral reference sound, feels generally linear in the output, SR25 Mark II is giving you a bit of a warmer sound, a lot more color to it. The treble is noticeably smoother. There's a little bit more emphasis in the bass and just a little bit more pulled out of the mids. And so this really it's a matter of preference, right? If you want that smoother sound, if you're very treble sensitive, the SR25 is going to be probably a stronger bet for you. If you want that more linear reference delivery, DX170 is going to be stronger there without that bit of extra color to the tone. And this is a lot about brand philosophy. iBasso is giving you, a stock Android, very neutral sound, just kind of very straightforward in the delivery. Astell&Kern is giving you a curated experience, and they've curated the tuning and the sound of the device as well to fit in with that experience. So if you're specifically looking at the DX170 for an upgrade to the DX160, you get some clear improvements, whether it's to the OS, some improvements in the performance, or just those subtle enhancements to the tuning, the soundstage, the treble, and the bass. But this is more like the difference between an iPhone 7 and an iPhone 8 than it is, the difference between the 8 and the iPhone 10. In general, though, if you're looking for a player under $500, DX170 is giving you just great value, incredible sound quality, even when compared to some more expensive DAPs. So I can confidently say DX170 provides some of the best price performance out there right now in digital audio players. Thanks for watching. You can check out DX170 and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more hi-fi personal audio content.